All right,
Start
Aaron.
mine. All right. No, I'm Pat now.
All right, yeah, you're Pat.
And
I'm
you're
Sandy.
and you're Sandy. Gender neutral names.
So,
Um,
I mean, I feel like we've had a bit of dialogue. I will let you kick it off. Let me know your thoughts
my thoughts
on
are
where you're at with the.
I kind of want to see things from your perspective. I know that we're in like a tough economics times, but we've had a relatively lengthy relationships, and I feel like you're trying to, get one over on me a little bit here. So I kind of want to understand things from your perspective and sort of start off there.
All right, so I disagree. I don't think I'm trying to get over on anybody. Currently, right now, as you alluded to a little bit, the economic times are tough for everybody. You know, especially owners of small businesses like myself. But
And
I'm starting to learn kind of where the market value is in the local area.
mhm.
And I feel like I may be, you know, being get over on, so to speak, to where I feel like I may be overpaying a little bit. Um, we discussed in short fashion kind of what we wanted to do with your project on that 100 unit condo and what the vision were. And then, you took off on your trip and gave permission to your secretary to make decisions on your behalf, which was a verbal agreement, verbal contract, so to speak. And when those upgrades were approved by your employee, which again, verbal contract between me and one of your employees, you came back and weren't happy about it due to the, profit margin there. And as you stated before, I feel like you were trying to get over on me, so to speak. So that's kind of where I'm at in that aspect. So I guess if that's the first topic of conversation, I guess we can start there.
We certainly need to start with. I mean, the main issue that we're trying to resolve is the woodworking and the
Correct.
condominiums.
Yep.
But from my perspective, I mean, I'm small business too, and I'm dealing with razor thin profit margins over here, and
Correct.
essentially this a little bit of uh, extra costs that I'm incurring is just going to make this a completely untenable deal for me. And she did not have permission to make a decision of that magnitude. And to refer to the contract as it was written, it states that any change must be accepted in writing by both of us. And I
Correct.
did not accept
So,
that change in writing.
so just a bit of rebuttal, and I agree, and I know those clauses to that contract. But it was by your direction that you wanted to go above and beyond by quality. This was discussed prior to making the decision with you, that this was one of the options, and it was said by you to me that in my absence, my secretary is able to make decisions on my behalf. And
Hmm.
after conversing with Fawn, um, she gave me the go ahead, which is you telling me she had authority to make that decision, her acting on the authority to make that decision. And by law, that's a verbal contract. I mean, it could be a separate verbal contract, in contradiction to the initial one. But either way, it was given to me by one of your employees to go ahead with that decision.
Hmm.
Fair to say?
Well, I
It's an
never
employee of your
verbally,
company. It wasn't me going out of mine.
I never verbally gave her permission and I don't believe from the information that I have that I ever told you that she had permission to make a decision of that magnitude.
The information I have states that I was told that in your absence, she was the one that was to make decisions.
But
And
I
actually,
think
I have
that
to.
was, I mean, the intention of it was more likely for small decisions because at the point upon when I left for my trip, I thought everything was pretty much in hand, so there wasn't much room left for change. You had a bid in at a certain cost and certain material, and that was the bid as it was when I left. So from my perspective, the time when I left, everything was pretty much well in hand. So any decision she was going to make was going to be a small one. And she called me when I was on my trip, and I told her to make no decisions without consulting me. But
So
she didn't understand when you mentioned a 2%, I believe it was 2% or 3% increase. She thought that was just on that material, not on the project.
so
She is not qualified or capable of making business decisions like that. She is just a secretary.
so was it expressed by yourself that you wanted quality upgrades to distinguish yourself amongst the competitor?
Yes.
So that being said, so you knew there would be some upgrades put in place. You upgraded some things yourself, such as appliances, things of that nature, but you wanted some carpentry upgrades because that's the thing the customer would notice initially.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. So then you said that if there's any things that need approval, my secretary is capable of making that decision. That was said as well, correct? I'm not trying to lawyer up here. I'm not trying to be
Well,
like, I'm just trying to
I
state the
don't have
facts
the
and make sure I'm right, is all I'm trying to do, because that's the information that I have. And then Fawn expressly agreed to, yes, make the upgrades. This was his direction he wanted to go, and that makes sense for what the direction was of, you wanted the carpentry upgrades, you wanted to distinguish yourself. This was a
yeah, but as
decision
I
that your employee made it to.
but you can also look, the initial plan was to paint that wood, and you do not use a high quality wood if you plan to paint it. I mean, I'm no expert in the area, but
Well,
that's
the
pretty much what
painted, I
came out
think,
of
was
it.
before.
And ultimately, I incurred an
I think that was before
additional
you
cost
realized you
due to
had a
that.
direct competitor. Was that not before you had a direct competitor?
That was the plan when I left on my trip, was for that to be painted. The
Okay.
plan for that was changed also without my approval, because the painting contractor said you don't paint oak, you stain
Yeah, you
oak,
don't paint.
because
Correct.
oak, you're not getting the benefit if you're painting over it. So my
Yeah,
plan
there's no
to
sense.
incur the quality was not to incur the cost in this area, because the cost was more than I could handle. I'm dealing with razor thin profit margins, like I said. So I was taking each key item by item and seeing if it was a tenable solution. That's why I couldn't have any major decisions made without my approval.
So, do you think it was wise to take that vacation before that was done? If you didn't want things to
Definitely
be done
not.
without your approval?
I regret the vacation now.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Um, and those are my initial reactions to that, Aaron. And again, I'm not trying to shotgun blast questions, but those are the questions that I have. It's your employee made the decision for my company, and now my company is, you know, I don't know, attaining the consequences of decisions that were made by your employees, and I'm biting that bullet, and that's not fair to woodcrafters. If a Viking employee made the decision, that should not fall back on me as the contractor.
But do you legitimately believe a secretary should be authorized to make a decision dealing with high level financial choices? She was just there to steward a project that I thought was already over.
She is your employee, and you told me that if you have questions, Fawn is capable to make those decisions. I am not an employee of yours. I am not here to gauge who's a janitor and who's a CEO. If they're employed by your company and you have given them authorization to make a decision and they make a decision, I'm a contractor. I'm here to do what your company tells me to do and do it to the best of my ability. It's not my decision to gauge who makes your decisions. That would be something that would be up to you and who you give, delegative authority to. So I don't think that's something that I should, bear the consequences for, in all fairness, from a business standpoint. That's not for me. Whoever signs the check is who signs the check. That's not something that I need to try to
Yeah, but you need to go back to the fact the contract states, and
correct.
you should know that I should be the one
But you're
making these
gone.
kinds of
How
calls.
how am I supposed to get a
Then
hold
no
of you?
changes should have been made.
Then how am I supposed to?
The original bid price was what, seven? I need to get through this. The original bid price was something,
It
and
was
you
something
massively increased that.
at your wish to differentiate your, um,
That's
you know.
subjective.
Well, no, you said you wanted to differentiate your condos from the competitor. You wanted to increase quality in the carpentry aspect. I can't do that without increasing the quality of the product, the quality of the wood, quality of the, workmanship, craftsmanship. I can't do that just by, putting a different coat of shine on it. There's going to be upcharges for that. Does that make sense?
I mean, it makes sense that it costs more to use the material that you used, but the bid was at, I have here, $7,000 a unit,
Hmm.
and the contract clearly states anything exceeding that is on you. It doesn't matter what happens after that,
I
unless
can't make
something
I can't
happens in
make
writing.
I can't make a decision without the approval of Viking Investments. That's
Yeah.
correct. I
And
cannot.
anything over that automatically falls on you.
That's not
That's
true.
how.
That's not true. It's just not, Aaron. And hear me out. If I made a decision on my own and said, "Hey, I'm going to use oak instead of pine, and I'm not going to say anything to anybody. I'm just going to do it, and I expect you to pay for it," that's one thing. If I ask to do that and I get approval from your company, this shouldn't fall on
Yeah, but
you
just
know
like you said, if you
on
asked a
myself.
janitor washing the floor and he approved, that doesn't mean anything. The contract doesn't say any Viking employee. The contract says me in
And
writing.
you said Fawn has
Did
the
I say that
ability.
in did I say that in writing?
You don't have to. It's a verbal contract. That's business
That's a
law.
separate contract.
That is a separate contract, but it's still a contract.
I feel like we need to take this in a different direction.
I'm just saying. So okay. Ultimately, we're in disagreement there, which is fine. Where are you at per unit for for the upgrades or wherever you deem fit, per unit?
For the upgrades.
I mean, where are you willing to negotiate? I mean, that's ultimately why we're here, right?
Well, the original was 7,000.
Mm-hmm.
You charge 9,500.
Mm-hmm.
Make an offer based on your interests.
I'm I'm at 9,500. You know where I'm at. I feel like this is, I mean, pretty straightforward. I got authorization from your company, from your employee, to make this upgrade. I mean, despite litigation fees and everything like that, verbal contract is still a contract. I have you telling me that she's authorized. She authorized it expressly that yes, this is in line with exactly what he wanted to do, as he left. This is how he wanted to separate himself from the competition and ensure that he had a market in the area. So I don't feel like there was any wrongdoing here at all.
And obviously, as we've gone over and over again, we feel
Yeah,
opposite
going round it round.
in
We're
that area.
yeah,
I've also
correct.
got no information stating that I gave her authority over all of that.
All
So
right.
that's kind of the contentious point, and the verbal contract versus the written contract, fighting all that out.
And I do have that information that it said expressly in a clause that it needed to be written. Um, but like I said, even if it's a separate contract, a verbal contract's still a contract.
But the
And
reality is, we're not going to get anywhere arguing law, because that's a no.
no, and I'm
That's
and
we're done at that
yeah,
point. We're just going, lawyering up
yeah,
and going to court.
yeah, and I'm not trying to go round and round with you. Those were just my initial thoughts on this whole thing.
I can see things from your perspective as that it kind of makes sense, and I hope you can see things from mine that it was
Oh,
obviously
I
not
do.
my. That's not my intent. That was not my intention for her to make that decision.
Absolutely. And, and that's kind of why I touched on like, well, you were gone, like things kind of went awry. And I understand that from your perspective, 100%. That's why I just, we can move to the negotiation point. We can go round and round for hours on this, I'm sure. Um, but those were my points of contention initially entering this negotiation.
But I think kind of just seeing each other's perspectives and how we can come out of this best is the only way we're going to do this without lawyering up.
100%. Yeah.
And the reality is, at $9,500 a unit, I'm I'm done. So, and at $7,000 a unit, I'm assuming you're in a bad spot.
Okay.
So we need to figure out, if we are going to negotiate, what the point is there. And then we do have other things to discuss, because that loan for $200,000 has a clause that I can call it at any time I want.
Correct.
And you owe me $10,000 in rent.
Correct.
These things are all sort of negotiated at the same time here.
Yep.
So that maybe if you help me out a little bit in one area, I can be a little lenient in another area, and that's sort of what we need to figure out here.
So,
But I need to understand your perspective a little bit better to see how I
so
can help.
yeah, absolutely. As you stated, we're all in a tight spot. The market just isn't there right now. We both understand that. Um, the getting's not very good right now. A couple of the things that I've been looking at, the rent that I'm paying right now is, I mean, 20% over market value. That's something we can touch on. Um, I'm in a tight spot as you are, so I'm looking to save some money, and looking to get out and be able to pay everybody that I need to pay, in order to survive as well and keep my well-being. I don't want to have to start selling off things just to try to keep my business intact and keep my employees where they are, because they're the ones that, ultimately making me money. Very crafty labor, and if I stop paying them and we don't have work, ultimately I have no workforce. Therefore, I'm in a bad spot as well. So a couple of the things I want to touch on is, you touched on the loan. We can start there. Is that something you're looking to pull, or is that something we
Basically,
can push out?
it's going to depend on how the other things work out, because I need a certain amount of money to be, liquid and able to move forward with my business endeavors. So it's
Okay.
going to depend. That's going to depend a lot on flexibility and the other areas. They're all sort of interrelated for me, because I need to come out without losing too much money, and I need to come out being able to continue on business. This condo deal was a massive investment for me. So
And me too.
I come
And
out
all of
with a
these
yeah.
fall into each other as well for me.
So
So let's start at the smallest figure, rent. Right now it's at 5, market value is at 4.
well, according to my information, we're fine if you discontinue as a tenant, and it seems like that's already your plan.
I have other options, um,
What
but
I'm
I
actually
would
concerned about is the rent that's due at this time.
the 10,000.
Yes.
That's I have that. That's not an issue.
Okay.
That's not an issue. I do have actually two other options for rental properties. Um, I'd obviously prefer to stay where I'm at just because of the moving fees and everything like that. But one of the other options I have is at 4,000. Market value in the building I'm in is 4,000. I'm paying 5. Is that something you'd be able to?
Well, I can share with you that I do have other options
Mhm.
that will put me at a higher rent than what you were giving, but I do value you as a tenant, and if that can be, something on the negotiation table to give you the lower rent in order to help me, because I'm kind of in a time crunch for money right now, like
Yeah.
today,
Okay.
not months down the road. I'm in a time crunch for money today.
Okay. So we can look at 10K up front, 10K now.
All right, that one's set in stone. We're just going to leave that one.
Okay. 4K future rent, question mark. Um, we
Yeah,
can,
I had
we
assumed
can,
from the information that you wanted to leave, so I didn't know that was on the table. So that's very interesting.
so we can put the 200K on the back burner and then focus on the big number.
Well, really, the 200K and the big number for me are almost the same number in terms of, so they're both very important to me, probably equally so. But I guess we need to see how we can. I would prefer to come to a negotiation that involves me being lenient on the loan and getting what the original and going all the way in terms of the condominium woodworking.
All
But
right.
really, in terms of staying solvent and some of the, I mean, I'm an investor, some of the investments that I've already got lined up, the ideal would be to get everything, but I want to work with you.
So where are you at per unit per condo? I mean, that's going to be the big.
That's
That's going to
that's
be the
really
tough
the
nut to crack.
that's the number line, unless we want to start playing with part of the loan. Um, so it goes from 7,000 to 9,500
Like I said, I'm at the top end of that.
with no wiggle room.
I mean, a little wiggle room, but I
You got to
mean,
keep in
not.
mind that $200,000 not being due right now helps you,
It does. It absolutely
because
does.
I have every right to call that, and then
You
we would
do.
lawyer, and then basically we would end up lawyering
We'd
up
we'd
about
lawyer.
and that's just going to hurt both of us. In reality,
Absolutely.
at the end of the
I
day,
mean,
that's
you
going
got
to
to pay
hurt
for
both of us.
litigation. Yeah.
And like I said, I want money soon, and I'm sure you need money too. So
Yeah.
we're not in a place where it's a good idea. That's not a good outcome for either one of us.
Absolutely not. I agree 100% with you.
And I can see that your verbal contract thing. I don't know what the end result would be, but either way, it's going to be a
Yeah, it's
pain.
going to be long drawn out. Neither one of us are going to get what we need now,
Yeah.
and it's going to end up costing more money.
But I need to understand better what the wiggle room is in terms of that. Because let me see here. So I've got, because let's say I postpone the loan, how well are you willing to go on the condominiums?
Um, I could probably get down closer to the 9-ish range.
Yeah, that definitely doesn't work.
I mean, what wiggle room do you have? You started at you know the bare minimum. I started at the maximum.
Yep. We're kind
I
of,
mean, it's typical negotiation fashion.
oh, so I understand your interests a little bit better. and then the keeping you as a tenant at the lower rent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that buys us. I feel like we're thinking about this very numerically, and we need.
We are, and I mean, if you look at it from a business point of view, I mean, if you go from 5 to 4, that's 12,000 a year. Let's
Yep.
look at it like that. So, I
I'm gonna
mean,
call it because I mean I'll tell you I can get an extra 1,000 of rent from a different tenant,
and I
and
could
that's well within my right. An additional 1,000 into what you're paying now.
correct.
So ultimately, that's costing me long term 12,000 in addition to that.
So, is that a client you've had for 9 years that you know is good on the rent that does your personal projects for you?
They are a well-respected,
Comfort base,
yeah,
you know, from a business standpoint, it's a comfort based thing. I've been 9 years strong. I do your personal stuff. I mean, I'm obviously a great tenant to you. I'm reliable. You can bring somebody in that has a great upstart and 2 months later goes default. You don't get your rent.
yeah.
I mean, there's risk involved, is all I'm
It
saying.
clearly states they're a well-respected. That's all I know. They're a well-respected
Uh,
business,
Fair
you
enough.
know.
I got to look at poking
But
holes in things,
honestly, that just brought up something else that's on the table. It's not money, the relationship.
right?
Because if we lawyer up, we're never going to work together again,
No.
and
And we've done,
that might be valuable on both sides.
I mean, that's 9 years of a relationship. I'm assuming multiple jobs, multiple bids. I mean, that's a huge thing. I think we need to come together and find a way to negotiate this.
Yeah, I mean, I've even got some potential, future investment deals, but I don't know if it's on the table to involve you in those. But I will tell you that if
I
that was on
understand.
the table, then I mean that could be something valuable to you
Correct.
because I'll tell you if all right, I need to I need to figure something. Hmm. But yeah, so that's potentially 12 to 24,000 money that I'm giving up for you as a tenant.
Hmm.
Throwing out the comfort relationship, just purely numbers. And the difference between 7,000 and 9,500. See, this is the hard part. It says it in two different ways for me
Well,
because I'm
and
focused
then
on my own profit, and my own profit has a lot of different factors. But
also keep in mind you have me at a loan at 10%, which is a full percentage over any other lender I'd go through, which is substantial right now. That with any new tenant you brought in or anything like that, any other loans you gave in the future, you may not be able to accomplish that amount of interest. So that's also money going into your pocket where I could save money going elsewhere.
okay,
A lot of variables.
yeah, there's a lot of variables going into this one. So we've pretty much crossed out the 10,000.
Yeah, that's a non-issue.
That's rent that's due, and you know it's due. I think there was just a little conflict between us, I guess. And
Yep, I have cash on hand for that. That's a non-issue.
so what we need to figure out is the
Price per unit.
I wrote down the breaking point. So you said you're willing to do
Yes.
9,000. So that would be 900,000.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really
And that's with the 10K up front. Um, and moving forward at the 4K rent, and then postponing and renewing that 200,000.
I can't fully do that. So we're either gonna have to move farther down on the cost per
Well, I mean, shoot
arrow.
an offer, Aaron. This is a two-way street. I'm willing to
Yeah,
listen.
I'm just trying to do some quick napkin math
Absolutely. Take your time, buddy.
because there's some certain deals already in the works that I need cash
Hmm.
for, so I need to figure out how much cash. But basically, what I'm thinking is we come up with a number that works for both of us on the condominiums, and I might. Is it possible to call part of the loan?
Yes, and it depends on where we end at on the condo price. You know, give me a second. I'm gonna switch screens here. Um, well, not shit.
Wish I had this in Excel. That's all.
So, honestly, yes and no. Yeah, shit. Yes and no, because we're all in that. There's a couple variables on my end, depending on where we end up. So,
So
ideally, Aaron, where I no nonsense need to be is 9,200 per unit. Otherwise, we'll have to revisit because then there's other variables that come into play, and that's postponing the rent. Outside of that, there's
and postponing the loan.
right there. Yeah, I'm sorry. The loan, the rent would still be paid, um, but there's a lot of other variables that come into play for me outside of that, um, to where it'd be a whole thing.
Like bankruptcy levels and.
Selling houses.
Okay. Well, it says here I sold my house when I needed
Yeah,
to.
so I'm next in line. But honestly, in order to not have to go that route, that's where I'd need to be. If we had to go that route, I'd have to look at that separately, really see where I'm at, um, and go from there. As far as
Well, I can tell you, it's got a
paying,
whole story about how great selling my big house was for me. So.
right, and I'd have to do the same thing. And yeah, I have a full page of that. But if we're not able to meet that number, it turns into a whole
I
thing that goes above and beyond this. It's more along the lines of trying to eliminate bankruptcy.
and interestingly enough, and probably very intentionally, that's a
Yeah,
bankruptcy point for me.
yeah,
So
fairly
I don't
intentional.
I don't know if you're keeping your house and we're going through with the negotiation. Because
Yeah.
at that point, I mean, if it's going to be bankruptcy for me, I've got to lawyer up. There's no other.
Oh, and same here.
Got to call the.
I feel like it's the same thing for me. Just to be able to see who is rightfully owed what, whether we end at that 7 or 95, that's gonna dictate my future, so to speak. So
Let me see what I can. Because I know absolutely I cannot do the 9500, and the 9200 puts me really tight.
yeah, so
Basically, you're saying beyond that, you're done.
Yeah, so at 9,200, that is not recalling the loan and paying everything base, like 700,000 for the oak, all my fees. That's me breaking even. At 1.12 million, that's the loan being recalled, me breaking even. That's not even getting extra money from you. That's me breaking even, no profit.
Hmm.
So there's really no negotiating that. Outside of that, I'm selling my home.
Well, is that something on the table for you?
It is, but there's a lot of information that comes along with that. And I mean, I'm getting nothing from that. Like I'm getting less than 50% of the home. I would honestly prefer to take that to court and see if I can salvage my home before
I
I
mean,
just give everything up.
that's understandable, but the reality is if we're going into the hostile thing, I am gonna, and because that would mean, well, at this point, I would just be refusing payment to you, I guess. I don't know what stage we're in. I think I've gotten paid and I'm refusing payment to you.
I think it's I think it's sitting in a fund willing to be withdrawn within 30 days, but it's only the 700.
And so you already have the 700. Actually, that's what I
No,
said in the first phone call was that I would pay the 700 within 30
yeah,
days. Yeah.
yeah. It states here.
So that I'm not in violation of, so I would pay the 700 and I would go after you for the 200 if we
No, I
can't
think it'd
find.
be more going after you for 9,500. I think is
Yeah, that would
more
be
how
the
this would
lawyer,
go.
but I think the going after you for 200, you wouldn't, there's no recourse for that. I can call the loan at any time.
Correct, and I could pay that just given the 700. Um, but I think the big difference there is that 250 outstanding
Hmm.
between the 700 and the 985 would be the argument
Yeah, that would be what would go into court.
going to litigation.
Well, I don't know if there's really a resolution to that because
I don't foresee one. I think it from
because
a business standpoint, I don't
if
think
I
it'd be
eat
smart.
the if I eat the 900 plus thousand, I go into a pretty bad situation myself.
Right.
So yeah, if I do all of that, then I would end up. Yeah, I think that's where we might end up unless you have some alternate. I'm trying to because I think that at the beginning we were kind of getting very hostile back and forth, not really
Yeah,
going
there's some
anywhere.
argument going on there, which is healthy in a negotiation. I would I'd have to say that. Um,
The reality is
yeah,
I can't go up to 900,000
I
or
can't go down to
nine.
seven.
So,
I mean, it's just I think
but if
there's
you
just
can't if you can't go below 900 or 9,000, what doesn't matter.
yeah,
Then there's really no room for negotiation there.
I agree. And I'm looking at this from a business standpoint. What I would do if I was put in the shoes of that individual, Sandy Wood, and I'd have to go to court before I'd just agree to throw my livelihood away,
And the problem with
just
it,
by agreeing with a negotiation. Honestly,
yeah, the problem with either one of us agreeing to anything in the middle is we basically acknowledge that the other side had some valid points.
well, not only
It's
that,
kind of
but you'd be
interesting.
putting the other one basically destitute, is what I'm getting coming across from you, and where I'd be going. So I think there needs to be a third party negotiator involved to see really what side's right. I
But
think
what?
both sides have valid points.
But you're not going destitute then, if because if I can call the loan and you're not destitute.
Oh, I'd be yeah, I'd be screwed if I didn't get any more than the initial deal, so to speak, because my
But that
overhead's more than that.
but that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's why we need a third party litigator to see who's rightfully entitled to that difference of 250.
Yeah.
Because if I look at this correctly, and I'm just opening up everything at this point because I don't feel we're gonna come to a conclusion here. So my income based off the 700, 7,000, whatever you want to call it, is 710, right? My
Yep.
invoice is 700,000. My payroll is 160. My construction materials is 50. Past rent dues that 10 grand. I'm already upside down.
Yeah.
So the difference in that would have been my profit from choosing to go with basic pine or whatever it was to oak, and now I'm not receiving that other 250.
Mhm.
That's my margin, and I have a very small window based on my outgoing cost versus my incoming profit. Very small margin, and so we clearly can't come to terms to where I'd break even or gain a little. So outside of selling off assets, I have no other route to take.
And you're not willing to go that route, it sounds
No,
like, which I
no,
can understand from a human perspective.
right. Not without, exploring the other options of court proceedings, things like that, and seeing if I have a leg to stand on.
But the lowest you can go, just so I can double check, see if there's is what 992.
Nine 9-2, postponing the not recalling the 200.
Otherwise, you're in bankruptcy essentially.
Yes, selling assets.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's nothing in it from my perspective to go for that unless I'm just trying to save the relationship.
Right. No, and I completely agree with you. That's where I'm at as well.
Man, this is a
Yeah, they kind of
difficult.
put us both in a bind, didn't
I
they?
think that's very intentional
Yeah, I agree.
because that 9200, that's the break even point for both of us,
Yep.
I think. And I can't afford a multi-year, multi-million dollar project to go break even.
Well, but then you'd still have the interest on the loan, and you'd still have your rent coming in, so you'd have something
Yeah.
because you are getting 10% interest. That's what 20 grand a year.
But I'd be, taking a bath, as my boss likes to say, on the whole
Yeah,
condominium
no, I
project.
I can definitely see it from that perspective for sure.
9200. Put this. Yeah, it sounds like we can't really come to an agreement. It's like I'm missing something. Like last week, it was like think outside the box day.
Yeah, I'm looking at everything I've written down too.
I mean, I could I can do the 92 and not go bankrupt, but I don't know why I would. Is sort of where I'm at. I think the choice is sort of like you give up your house, I give up my other potentials.
So you need the 10 grand past due rent now, correct?
Yes. Well, because there's not much debating that one from my perspective.
But I'm just looking at ways to, if we're at 92, how can we get to 91? Does that, if we move forward at 4K a month rent instead of 5, does that come off the top to where now you're at 91, 90.8? I
I
mean,
can
you
tell you
see
in
what I'm
all
saying?
of my breakdowns, it actually doesn't even mention the rent.
Yeah, I don't see it either. I just saw it in the text.
Just because I think from my perspective, this is like a today.
Okay. So yours is like right now. All right.
Like right now, I need this.
All right, Aaron, I'm going to excuse myself for 2 seconds. I'll be right back.
Alrighty.
I'm not eating. I'm just going to run to the bathroom right behind me real quick. All right, we figured out. Not quite.
Yeah, I don't know if there's much else. I just feel like we're fucking missing something. I'm feeling.
No, I can zoom back through the text.
Well, the problem is with like we started off. You're at 95. I'm at 7, but you're not willing to come much down because it's going to put you into financial straits very quickly.
Yeah, I honestly can't.
Because what I
And
was hoping is to kind of come off somewhere in the middle, work together, and then
I think that'd be too easy for
and
the class.
then sort of use the loan to help me make up for that.
Oh, so here's the issue. So I have $1 million house. Present market, it's worth about 800.
Yeah, it's a bad
I'd
market.
lose an immediate 300. I'd have to pay off 200 in mortgage in my first mortgage, 175 in the second mortgage. So I'd only net like 400 from the sale of my home, which sounds great unless I end up paying, or only I'd end up losing, all this money on these condos, which would be 250. I'd be down to 150. Then what?
That's the gamble you're taking if we go to court.
Well, no, I don't feel it's that. I'd be paying, 10 grand. Worst case scenario, I lose 250. I already lost. And I'm out 10 grand. I'm not out, what, 550 or whatever the heck it'd be. 450, whatever, 800,000 to 250 is. That'd be the biggest loss. And I wouldn't gain anything by doing that. I'd just end up losing my home. And that's why I'm very reluctant to take that route. Because then what? Now I'm just putting myself in a deeper and deeper hole. At least if I hang on to that, I can find other jobs and things of that nature and things to try to keep me on my feet. I may end up losing it in the long run, but I wouldn't want to lose that now if there's a potential for me to spend 10 grand, whatever it is, and recuperate my money because I think I'm right. And that's my issue right now.
Yeah, from my understanding, and they even talk because I got advice from some lawyer, and then I got advice from someone else because the lawyer's like, I should just pay you 490 because I should take the 210 off the 700 and just call it a day. And then someone else said basically that that would put you into bankruptcy, and I ended up losing anything I bought with the 210.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're going to come to any common ground on this, Aaron.
Yeah, it's a rough one.
Yeah.
Because I can see that mistakes were made on both sides. I shouldn't have gone on vacation.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but like you said, there's mistakes made on both ends. There's options, just not options I'm willing to express. Like I'm not. I don't think from a business standpoint that's a smart move for me, to just throw all my assets in and like that when I see an out, well, a potential out. Um, so yeah, I'm with you. I don't think we're gonna come to terms today, sir. Unfortunately,
And I guess we're going to be hostile. What does that mean for the rent? I mean, I guess you still owe me the rent, so it would
I
be
still owe you the rent.
I can call the loan now, and I can get the other tenant.
Well, and I chose not to renew it after uh at the end of the year. I chose already not to renew it.
The lease.
So the lease. So it'll be done at the end of the year.
All right. I don't know when that is, but
December 31st.
no, I mean, I don't know what time this is happening. It doesn't say.
I'm just picking at it, man. I'm just kidding. So, all right, man. So if you just want to share this video with me, text it or whatever, and what has to be submitted by Friday?
Really, the main thing is the paper. We submit the God damn it, I don't know if I have that. There's a sheet you have to fill out reviewing each other and
That's
everything.
for today.
Yeah.
And then we have to submit this and the reflection
The
Friday.
reflection is if you look at the points, that's 99% of it.
Yep.
And
But
so
like you said, it doesn't matter what we did, how we did. It's that we negotiated and we hit the proper, wave tops.
yeah, I think the key to the learning was when we were kind of going at each other a little bit, trying to get away from that because we weren't going anywhere with that.
No, we weren't. And I think realizing that and immediately moving forward, saying, "Hey, this is a roadblock. Let's hop to the next topic."
Yeah.
That was key because we could have sat there and just argued all day and not made any progress at all.
And it was a lot of just how we both saw things differently. Unless once it got less heated, we kind of saw that, from your perspective, it kind of made sense that she authorized that, and from my perspective, I'm like, she's my freaking secretary, and I thought,
Yeah, who is
this was
she?
all, yeah.
But I think that's just, I don't know, strong attitude, strong personalities that came out. And once I said something you didn't agree with, you said something I didn't agree with, and so then we're like, "Hey, my point's better than your point." And I think that's just our personalities. Maybe just type A.
I have
This
been
is right.
accused of being a type A before.
Me too. So I think that was more just our personalities adapting to each other. I think that was kind of the test. And then after that, it's okay. We both realized we're not moving forward. Let's go to the next topic. And if you noticed throughout this whole thing, when we couldn't find the common ground, we hopped to the next item. And so we did progress through this through, I mean, a pretty standard negotiation path. I
Yeah,
think we really did.
but they just set it up to be freaking. Well, basically, one way or another, one of us is going to have to sacrifice quite a lot.
Absolutely. And I don't want to go bankrupt. I don't know if you do. Not one of the things I want, but yeah, I think as this class progresses, these are going to get progressively more difficult and more involved. Like you said, last week's was like a page. This one was like 7. I think this is to be expected the next 2 weeks as well. So
All right.
that's
So
what it is.
the final, basically, from my perspective, is the 10,000 and the 200,000, and then I guess that's what I'm unclear on. So if I do, I pay you the. I mean, it's the same freaking thing either way. Either you're paying me the 200 and the 10, or I'm taking that out of what I pay you for the work. Either way, it's going to be the same.
Correct.
All
Yep.
right.
And the only thing up for debate is what that number is that I'm getting paid for the work. That is what is still up in the air.
Yep. But right now, I am paying you 700,000 so that I'm not in breach of contract as I see the contract.
Correct. Yep, that is in writing.
Yes.
Contract in writing. Yep.
So that's happening. So from your perspective, you're getting paid the 700 and paying me the 200 and the 10.
Yep.
All right.
All right, Aaron.
Well, thanks, Parker. It was interesting.
Yeah. Best of luck to you, brother. Yeah, just shoot me that clip so I can throw that out Friday. And it's good talking to you, buddy. Good luck
All right.
with the rest of class.
You
All
too.
right, man.
Bye.
Later.